Hey, what's going on? Todd Shaw with another episode of the Sawdust Dude. Woo! Yeah, thanks for watching. I appreciate it so much. Hey, so we're learning some of the basics about our 7 1/4 inch circular saw, and that 7 1/4 refers to the blade. Now, the great thing about your circular saws, they're a real workhorse. And about the only thing that you'll ever have to do is change out the blades on them. And how do you know if the blade needs changing out? Well, let's go back and say this. I've seen these blades get like so dull, and you're trying to push through a cut. And you're especially something like oak or cherry or hickory is real hard. And so you're trying to push through. That blade's just getting hot. You can look over to this side of the saw and you can see that blade start distorting. I mean, you can see it'll warp. And the blade gets so much heat, and once it gets so much heat, it kind of loses the edge that it had on the carbon tips of the blade. And at that point, you just got scrap metal, and it's time to replace the blade. Another little funny story about that is a lot of times when you're cutting and that blade will get hot and bind up in the summertime, especially in the South. I've had locusts, a wasp, and other insects like fly in the blade. It's something about the vibration in it, and it attracts the bugs. It's the weirdest thing. I asked an entomologist one time about that, and he's like, I'm really not sure about that. I'm like, well, anyway, it happens. So, you know, that's when it's hard to cut and bugs start flying at your blade, it's time to change your blade. So how do you do that? Glad you asked. Listen and watch. Let's learn together. Let's talk about different blades before we know that the blade for this circular saw is 7 1/4. How do I know that? Well, because of years of working with this saw, but also because it has it right here on the label up at the top, 7 1/4. And 99% of the time, any circular saw, whether it's DeWalt, Makita, whatever you use, it's going to be a 7 1/4 blade. Now, when you go to your favorite hardware store and you're going to see all these blades on the wall, what do you do? What do you do? Well, probably you got to ask yourself this question is, what kind of project am I going to be doing? If you're going to do some framing, well, guess what? There is a blade. Let me find my right blade here. There's a blade for that. And usually that's a 24 tooth blade. And over on the blade, you'll see the size of the blade, 7 1/4, and then 24 T. And that stands for teeth, or toofuses, teeth. So it's 24 teeth on this blade. And then a lot of times it will say up here at the top, it'll say for framing, and you'll see that up there. All right. And so you don't necessarily have to use a DeWalt blade for a DeWalt. I've used Freud blades. They make a Diablo. Also, it depends on what kind of work you're doing, is how many teeth. Because remember, the more teeth, the finer the cut. So if I'm just cutting 2x4s and 2x6s, a 24 tooth blade is great. I want to go up a little bit and doing a lot of cross cut. Something that really, like if I'm cutting plywood, I want to go up to like a 40 tooth blade like that, all the way up to a 60 tooth or an 80 tooth blade, and it's like for an ultra fine finish. So we'll just stay with the nice framing blade. That's what we'll just use for here. Got a little tab, pop that off, pop out that plug, undo the plastic protection around there. It's a lot easier to do this before you put the blade on. So we'll tear into the packaging and then take that off. So the blade's ready to install. And so we're ready to go from in here. And so we'll just lay this to the side. Now, how do I get my old blade off? One of the things I want to do is make sure that my deck height or deck adjustment, a lot of times you can move it all the way down. That way you can get to the blade easier. Now, with DeWalt, they have a little tool in the back of the saw that's made to take this blade off. So you'll need that. And also notice on the front of the saw is a little trigger here. If you ever wonder what that was for, that's to lock out the blade from in here. And so I make sure that my saw is unplugged before I go sticking my fingers down here around the blade. I'm going to take that little button, I'm going to move it in, and that's good and locked. From in here, I just take my tool and just turn this way. And then this is just righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So from in here, and then my blade comes off. Now it's real helpful if you open this bottom guide. Let me do this all the way back. If this is all the way up like this is kind of in the way, and you're trying to get that piece is in the way, you're up here trying to do it, now that's in the way. It's real helpful just to open this all the way up like that. Roll this back with your hands. So I've got my thumb here and my middle finger on that one. This is locked into place, and I've already loosened it. So from in there. Now, that's one way with these wrenches here. And that's what comes with the saw. Let me just tighten this back up. And so that's good. And that's tight to there. Now from here, notice this. This is pretty much a half-inch size. A lot of times you'll see half-inch size bolts on here. It could be a metric size, but from here it's just half-inch. A lot of times I'll keep a wrench like this to the side or in my toolbox because of the length. This being longer, my hand's way back here in the back, and I have more than using this little tool right here. It's just to have a long wrench that's kind of got that little funky curve to it, so it kind of comes back like this. If it were a straight wrench, you know, just like that, wouldn't work. But one that's got a little curve like that, I'm sure there's a name for it, but I'm not a mechanic. You're talking to the sawdust dude here, not the sawdust mechanic. That doesn't even make sense. Anyway, so from here, I've got my bolt out. I'm just going to stick that to the side. You got a little washer like this, and it's got a bevel to it. This side's always going to be up. The flat side's going to be towards the blade. Just from in here, I pick the blade up and I slide it out. It's just that simple. Now, here's what you need to do, because this will, you put the blade on backwards. Everybody on the job site, if you're a carpenter apprentice and you put a blade on backwards, it will take you years. I mean years to live that one down. Put the blade on right, okay? It's happened. I've never done it, but I've had guys where I've asked them to do it, and I'm just like, yeah, you might want to do that one again. Good way to remember it, a lot of times if it's a brand new blade, they've got the writing like this. All the legal jargon's on the back, but the blade, the point that goes this way. And so I'm going to put the good looking writing on the outside, and that's going to be the right way. Another way is they've got little arrows on here, even on the back, just in case. And DeWalt put a little arrow on here. And the best way to remember this, on these blades, you see these little tips. Those are the carbide tips. On a circular saw and on a miter saw and table saw, the teeth are going to spin back towards you. So when I put my teeth in like this, put my teeth in, I still got my teeth. So when you put the teeth on the blade, you want to make sure that they spin back towards you and all that's in the right place. Take your washer, flat side down, you just put that on there, righty-tighty, spin it to the right. I get it hand tight right there, just like that. I hold down my little trigger again, and then what I do, once it gets to a tight spot, I just give it another little snug. Doesn't have to be super tight, just one more little push, and then that's tight. And you are in business. But before you start, just double check. Are the teeth spinning back? Are the teeth spinning in the right direction? And then you are good to go. See, that wasn't so bad. That's what I love about the Sawdust Dude. When you watch, you listen, you learn. And once you got the blade off, here's something you can do. You kind of get dust, sawdust build up. You can take a brush, just kind of run that in there. I've seen guys say just take an air compressor, blow it in there. I don't think OSHA wants you doing that anymore, so let's just use a paintbrush, because especially if you're on the job site, just take a moment just to kind of clean that out, and you're good to go there. Take an old paintbrush. Don't borrow a new good paintbrush from a painter. And that's it. Wasn't bad, was it? See? You can do it. I'm telling you. That's what's great about the sawdust, dude. When you listen, you learn the skills so you can get better results. Cool deal. Thanks for watching the sawdust, dude. Keep watching, and I'll see you real soon. Oh, yeah.